guys, and welcome back to another episode of High School for Newbies. I realized the irony that when I started this series, the group of kids that were entering high school are now graduated, and yet I'm still here, still dipping my toes in the water of this series. But hey, I can help a new group of kids, so I guess that's cool. So anyways, today's episode, as you can tell by the title, is about choosing your classes. And I realize that at the time of posting this, you've no doubt already done so, but this video will be here in the indefinite future for those who would like some advice on this topic. So, let me start out by saying that some schools still use the old school method of doing it, of having like the physical paper catalog you flip through and choose your classes from. Other schools have since digitized this process, like colleges have done it, although some colleges still do the paper thing too. But regardless of how you choose them, you're going to have some sort of catalog with which you are presented to choose your classes. And this may feel super overwhelming, especially if your school just gives you complete and total freedom in choosing all your classes. This is where schools vary as well, in that some only let you choose your electives and the type of PE that you do, whereas other schools will let you choose everything. Obviously, you need certain amounts of credits in each subject, but as long as you fulfill those, you pretty much have free will to do what you want as long as you have everything completed. So, especially in those schools, it feels extra overwhelming. And some schools still are kind of between the two, where freshmen only pick the electives in gym, and then as you go up in the grades, then you are allowed to choose everything. Regardless. So, I would say, if you know you're going to college, which not everyone does, I mean, it's the assumption, but not everyone does, but if you know you're going to college and you know what you're going to go to college to get your degree in, it might not be a bad idea to pick classes that cater towards that. You don't have to. There is no rule saying that you have to, but it is helpful if you have that under your belt going in. But if you don't want to do it that way, that's okay. You can also choose classes that just sound interesting to you or sound fun to you, as long as they're in the correct categories. So, I, for one, knew I'm not going to college, so I just took whatever the hell sounded good to me. So my very first elective I ever chose for high school was actually child growth and development, which is basically child psychology with a little emphasis on, pregnancy and childbirth, but it's mostly on early childhood psychology. That to me sounded all sorts of interesting, whereas most of my friends were taking things like art and fun things like that. It's not for lack of wanting in, they just were all filled by the time I got to the table. So I took that instead, and I actually loved that class. Now, when it comes to gym, there's actually a lot more choices than you would necessarily assume. It varies school to school, but the school I went to, this is still true of them now, you could just take regular gym, or you could take a sport for, I forget how many semesters, and it would also fulfill your gym credits. Or you could take archery, you could take swimming, you could take bowling, you could take weightlifting. There were some other options too that are evading me in this moment, but those were all under that umbrella, and you could do it that way. But here's a life hack. If you're not an athletic person and the idea of taking gym for a bare minimum of 2 years, certain schools make you take it all 4. The one I went to only required 2 years of it though. If you really, really don't want to do it, take it for summer school. Take it both of your summer school semester, or not semesters when it's summer, but both periods that you have for summer school. If you take it for both terms, you will fulfill a year's credit of gym. So you do that for 2 years, you do not have to ever take a gym class during the school year if you do that during 2 summers. And summer school is generally only 2 weeks long, so it's 1 month out of your summer that you'll have to take gym during. That's not that bad, honestly. So, just a thought. I'm not saying you should do that, especially if you like sports and athletics and things. By all means, go take the actual classes that sound fun to you. But if that just doesn't sound like it appeals to you, that is one way around that. So, just a thought. Now, another tip, especially for freshmen that I wish I had known going into high school, was study hall. Oh my god. I didn't take it because I thought it sounded just boring and like a pointless throwaway class, right? And then most of my friends took it, and I found out what it actually was. See, I think because the title, I somehow associated this with detention hall, so my brain just took it as a bad thing and just didn't even give it a chance. Then I found out it's basically a class period where you can do any homework you didn't finish the night before, or anything like that, or just read. There's no actual class work in this class. Okay, for someone like me, who regularly kind of didn't do their homework, this would have been great. And a class that gave no homework, this would have been great. So I highly recommend it if, you're kind of just going through the motions with high school because it's the law and you have to go. Yeah, you might want to take study hall. At least take it into consideration. It apparently is not a bad thing. And I kick myself all the time that I never took it, because apparently it is an easy passing grade, and you don't really have to do F all to pass it. So that is another little life hack tip that I would recommend to you guys. Now, for things like math, it gets a little trickier, because you're gonna need to know what you're doing. I have dyscalculia, so I pretty much failed remedial math over and over and over again. But for most normal people, most people can handle doing math. It's just a matter of knowing your placement of what type of math to take for what is both challenging to you, but isn't so hard to where you can't do it with a passing grade. Just know how you are with math and what sounds in the realm of possibility for you, especially once you get into upper grades in high school. You'll start needing recommendations from teachers to take your next class when you're signing up for classes, so if you know going in what you're good at, what you're bad at, what you're looking at to sign up for, it'll help you greatly for this. Now, foreign languages. This changes state by state, so you may have to look up what the requirements are for your state. I'm in California, so the Californian requirements are bare minimum 2 years of a foreign language. Colleges, however, like to see a bare minimum of 3, so if you're planning on going to college, keep that in mind. Take 3 years of a language. You don't even have to do 3 years of the same language, just 3 years of foreign languages. I did the bare minimum because, again, I didn't go to college. I took sign language because I have a little bit of a lisp, but I figured it was the one foreign language I could take where neither my lisp nor my stutter would throw me off. So American Sign Language, actually more challenging than you would think it is, but I found it to be a godsend. But I also highly consider taking German. So just saying, whatever sounds interesting to you, take that one. And different schools have different language options. I mean, obviously there's always Spanish, there's always French. German is very common, that almost every high school at this point has. Most high schools also have American Sign Language. More recently, they've started adding Japanese, Cantonese, Chinese, and from there, it gets more individual school to school for what they have. Usually depends on what teachers they have available to be able to teach those classes. So, I mean, I've heard of some high schools having Italian, of which I am super jealous, and I wish I could have taken that. Some have, like, Arabic languages. Some have all sorts of different things. You just have to look and see what your school has, and then maybe take into account how hard does it sound like it will be to learn this language. That might be a thing to take into account as well. So, just saying, bare minimum is usually 2 years, but you may need more than that, so take that into account when you're planning your classes. From there, let's see, what else is there? Usually there's some requirement for health. Usually you only need to take it once, and as long as you have a passing grade, that's it. You don't have to take any more of it. But if you're a little nerd like I am, I still wanted to take more of it, even though I had fulfilled that credit. So if your school has more, you can take more. But bare minimum, you will have to take it at some point. I highly recommend just doing it straight out of the gates, get it done, over with, and just out of the way, because if you can get the bare minimum requirements just done early on in your high school education, you're going to have more freedom in your later high school years to take whatever the hell you want. I mean, by my 3rd year there, I was taking, like, what was it? I think film history, basically, and it was counting for English credits, okay? So, if you just get rid of the bare essentials straight out of the gate, you'll be taking basically all fun classes by the time you get to junior and senior year. It's a great way to go through it. Now, for things like history, social sciences, things like that, usually there's not as much freedom. I mean, there's some schools where there are more options that will still count towards the requirements. What do I hear outside? Oh, the bins. Okay, but, sorry about that. But, generally, you will have to take government, you will have to take U.S. history, comparative cultures and geography, and I think there's, like, one other one, economics. Those are, like, your 4 that everyone in this country basically has to take. They may have a slightly different title, but those pretty much, you have to take them. Outside of that, there's additional ones if you're a history buff that you can take for extra credits. You can also get AP credits, which, another fun fact, if you take an AP class, even if you don't graduate with a perfect grade, but it's still a passing grade, that looks better to college applications than if you got a perfect A in just a regular class of that same class. So if you think you can swing it and do AP classes, they are a godsend if you are actually trying to get into colleges. Because I didn't take them, but I mean, almost all of my friends did, and this was their reasoning for why they did that, so I pass this info along to you. For science, there's usually tons and tons and tons of options, and this is where I had loads of fun, because I always have loved science. So there's usually things like earth science, there's astronomy, there's, obviously just like the regular straight up freshman science, sophomore science, blah 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 blah, there's those. There's the additional health classes, in addition to just the regular health, also counts for science. There's chemistry, there's biology, there's all sorts of them. And there's usually more individualized from there as well. It just depends on your school, but they pretty much all have those base classes, if nothing else. Go for whatever sounds the most interesting to you, because that's where, unless you're actually going for some type of scientific degree in college, yeah, this won't matter as much, so just do what sounds fun to you and what sounds interesting to you. English, literature, those are pretty much joined at the hip. They both count into the same category, really. But you'll also generally have a lot of freedoms here, because yes, there's like freshman English, sophomore English, junior English, blah 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 blah. But there's also things like classic literature. In my school I had the film studies class that somehow counted for English. I don't know how or why, but it did. There's tons and tons and tons of them. There's like a creative writing class. It almost read more like a college listing of English classes at the school I personally went to. I don't know if that's true of all high schools, but ours had a ton of English programs. So, I mean, I had a lot of fun just taking those. Even though I didn't really need them, even after I fulfilled the credits, I was still taking them just because I enjoyed them. Because I actually fulfilled my English credits really early on into my high school career. So, you can do that, and you can keep taking them if you want to, if you don't have other credits that still need to be fulfilled. It just depends how you go about it. Which leaves us with electives. Electives is where it gets tricky, because on one hand, if you're trying to vie for colleges, you can kind of swing this in your favor by picking specific types of electives, but if you're not really worrying about that, you can take anything you please. And that is very overwhelming when there's such a lengthy and varied list of what all there is. So, I'm not sure I have very specific advice here, other than if you're trying to get into college, you may want to pair this up with what you're going for and go for something in that same field. But if you're not too worried about that, Just take whatever sounds interesting to you, because they have so many choices that maybe you won't get an option to take when you get to college. And may as well take it now. It's up to you on that one. I already told you that I took the child growth and development. Second half of the year, I took beginner's guitar. The next year, I took beginner's web design, which just for me was an easy A because I was already professionally doing websites for people at this point, but don't tell the school that. So that one, I knew everything going, and that was an easy A. I really didn't want to be challenged. I just want an easy A. I also took art history, which is the closest to an actual art class I ever got to take because they were always filled. I took, what else did I take? Well, after the third year, I switched over into independent studies, so it got murkier from there of what counted and what didn't as what, so I mean, I'm not really factoring that in, but basically, take whatever you want. I mean, I personally desperately wanted to take auto shop. But in the early 2000s, our school was still antiquated that way and was like, no, girls don't take auto shop. Yeah, I'm still horrified by that to this day. They said the same thing over wood shop. Still butthurt over it. Oh well, but anyway, but there are so many available to you. I also really wanted to take journalism, I really wanted to take photography, but those were always filled too, so if you want into any of the artistic type classes, you want to try and get in there early. Do not put off signing up for your classes, because it's basically first come, first serve, who has the best grades of the people that we have in this pool, we're gonna pull from there. So just saying, especially your very first year in, you have to go early if you want half a shot at getting into those classes. And frankly, that is about all the tips and tricks that I can think of to offer you guys in picking your classes. I don't know if I was helpful for you or not. Hopefully I was, but if not, I'm sure there's plenty of other videos like this one out there that probably can help you, but if there's a specific thing that you'd like advice on, feel free to ask it in the comments. If I personally don't know the answer, someone else in the comments might be able to help you out, so just a thought. So anyway guys, as usual, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you're not already and you'd like to be, click sub or hit the notification bell. Oh gosh, I screwed it up. Let's try that sign off again. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you're not already and you'd like to be, click subscribe. Hit that notification bell icon so you never miss an upload. Leave comments down below. Make sure you're following my social media accounts. They're all listed down below. And if you like what I do here on this channel and you'd like to help support it, the donation link, as always, is down in the description. So anyway guys, till next time, bye-bye.